Game 1, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers facing the Mavericks tonight at 9 p.m. on ESPN, while his former team, the defending champion Raptors, start their first-round series with the Nets at 4 p.m. on ESPN. Kendrick Perkins back here with us, and Stephen A. Smith, I want to get your take on this. A better chance in the title this year with the Clippers, or would it have been with his old team north of the border?
I think it would have been with his old team north of the border, because I think that about the personnel that they have in place, the chemistry and cohesiveness that they shared, the fact that even though the Eastern Conference is competitive, it's not what the West is as a conference right now. I recognize the fact that the Clippers have a multitude of weapons, but the fact that they won the championship last year, just figuring things out, they would have had things figured out even more this go round, which means they would have had additional experience. They obviously would have been stronger with Anunoby in the lineup to join Kawhi, Siakam, and everybody else. And the Eastern Conference is still relatively weaker than the Western Conference. That's why I would say that he would have had a better chance of winning the championship with Toronto than he would with the Clippers, even though with the Clippers it's still pretty damn good.
Well, I agree with you. I don't know that the West is that much better than the East anymore at the top, but it's still, I agree with you, a little better. The main thing for me is, look, Paul George is better than Pascal Siakam. He's a better player. But in the playoffs last year, Siakam stepped up. We have to see if Paul George is going to be a better crime partner than Siakam when it matters most. We don't know that yet. Also, continuity. You mentioned chemistry, Stephen A. That's huge. Continuity with Toronto. The Clippers have not really all been healthy when they're all together in the lineup. They're almost they win almost every game. But that hasn't happened a lot. So you have to wonder about their chemistry going into these playoffs, even if they're not as reliant on that as, let's say, a team like the Lakers, just the way they're built. But when you look at Toronto, the improvement of the other players, the continuity, Pascal Siakam, the whole thing, I think I thought he was going to win the championship either with Toronto or the Clippers. I thought Kawhi was the balance of power. I think an even better shot with the Raptors. I agree.
Oh, no, we're not about to do this today. We're not about to do this. Listen, he need to stay right there with the Clippers. And I'm a fan of Kawhi Leonard, and we all know this. Max, you know this. I'm a fan of Kawhi. But he chose to leave. He had an option to stay. He chose to leave. He think the grass is green on the other side. Let's not come on. Leave my Toronto Raptors alone. I picked them from the beginning of the season. They're just fine without Kawhi. Let Kawhi go over there. He wanted to go play with PG. He thought PG was better than Pascal.
To play where he's from.
Let him stay
Kendrick?
over there. We not about to. No, that's not true. Because from what I've heard, and Stephen A. could correct me if I'm wrong, but did Kawhi want to push for Masai Ujiri to trade Pascal to get PG in Toronto?
Yes,
Am I right about that?
He wanted Paul George, and in order to acquire Paul George, Masai would have had to trade Pascal Siakam, because that's what they would have demanded in OKC, and Masai didn't want to do that.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. To Mac's point that he wanted to play at home, that's not true. He wanted PG, so he got it. We're not doing this. We're not doing this today.
He did.
We're not doing this today.
I will say this.
Toronto is just fine.
He did want
to be
defending champion Raptors. The Celtics and the Heat also certainly a threat. Kendrick Perkins still here with us, and Max, we're going to start off with you. Which team would you say is the biggest threat to the Bucks in the East?
Well, I was going to say the Sixers because of the matchup, but not without Ben Simmons. Shout out Bill Simmons. Not without Ben Simmons, who you know, let's be honest, they don't have a shot without him. The Raptors. The answer is the Raptors, and I haven't been on the Raptors all year. A lot of people, what about the Raptors? I didn't believe in them. You just pluck Kawhi off the team and really don't replace him. How's that going to work? Well, Norman Powell advances, you know, as a player. Anunoby gets healthy and plays more than he did the previous season. And remember, he was like supposed to be the next Draymond Green, right? Not that long ago. And then you still have the core of that excellent team, Van Vliet and Kyle Lowry, and you still have the bigs who are really good defensively and also can space the floor. You know, not to mention nothing of Spicy P, Stephen A., who the truth about Pascal Siakam is I don't know that he's any better than he was last year on a per-play basis. You know, he was really, especially in the playoffs, he was really good last year. But he's being asked to do it more often. There's more attention on him, and he's still maintaining, which really you can say if it's not an improvement as a player, it's at least a proving that you can do it when you're the man or more the man. I think the Raptors pose the greatest threat to the Bucks given Ben Simmons' injury.
Go ahead, Perk.
I have Toronto coming out of the East. But before they could get to Toronto, they have to get through the Miami Heat in the second round. And when I look at this Miami Heat team, they have a bunch of goons, a bunch of hard-nosed players who do not fear the deer at all. They don't fear them. And Eric Spoelstra has the recipe. He has the recipe to beating them. He's proven it during the regular season. Like I said, they played them exceptionally well without Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic down there in the bubble. Jimmy Butler is on a mission. They have multiple guys that they could throw at Giannis, from Jimmy Butler to Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, Bam out of the Bayou. And by the way, when the Miami Heat get hot, they got dangerous weapons. They're number one in the league in three-point shooting. They got Jimmy Buckets, who's known to step up in the big moments. Bam out of the Bayou, who's one of the most versatile bigs. So before we could advance them to the Eastern Conference Finals, they got to make sure they get through the second round. That's the Miami Heat, because the Miami Heat want all that smoke with the Milwaukee Bucks. All of it. All of it.
Well, listen, I can't knock that, because all throughout the year before the bubble took place, I've been talking about Miami and how you got Duncan Robinson and Hero. They'll pull up from the parking lot, and we know the leadership of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and the way that they've been playing, and Eric Spoelstra can coach his tail off. We get all of that. But I'm going to tell you, as I've watched the Toronto Raptors, particularly in bubble play, first of all, they were the first to arrive in the bubble. They were on a mission. Masai Ujiri, the clear leader of this franchise. I don't know about anybody else, but Nick Nurse is my coach of the year. I mean, when you consider what this man does.
He's mine too.
Thank you. When you consider what this man does in terms of switching lineups, switching defenses, going zone, 2-3 zone, throwing boxing ones like he did on Steph Curry in the finals, and then you look at the personnel that they have available. You got Van Vliet stealing passes, deflecting passes. You got Kyle Lowry, one of the best at drawing offensive fouls. You've got their athleticism and their ability to get out on wings and really defend three-point shooting. Plus, they've got size and defensive prowess in the interior with Gasol and Ibaka. And then you take into account the perimeter shooting that they give you. Yes, they lost Kawhi Leonard, but they got Anunoby. He's no Kawhi Leonard, but he's a nice athlete. He's athletic. He can finish in the open court. He can do some things. Pascal Siakam has really emerged as an offensive leader of this franchise. Collectively, what they do defensively, when you consider the ingredients that come with being a champion, their ability to defend and hit perimeter shots, the combination of the two makes them a profound threat. I get where you're coming from, Perk, in terms of saying that, you know what, they'll probably come out of the East, but Milwaukee would face Miami before they even get to Toronto. I just think with this physical, as Milwaukee can be, along with their defensive prowess. Of course, Miami gets hot. They can take out anybody. But do you anticipate that in a best of 7? 2 or 3 games they might do that. That fourth game, maybe not so much. That's why I would say Milwaukee ultimately would probably meet Miami, even though I think Miami could push Milwaukee to a 7th game.
Yeah, Perk, they're big on heart, but they're a little short on height to deal with Milwaukee, I think.
Well, Max, first of all, listen, I got the Toronto Raptors coming out. And by the way, height don't mean anything. Because if you look at the Toronto Raptors, they start a backcourt that's the smallest backcourt in the NBA. So height don't mean nothing. And they rank number 3 defensively, number 1 in isolation defense. But when you look at this Miami Heat team, they have multiple guys. Like I said, Jay Crowder was a steal in that Andre Iguodala trade for Eric Spoelstra in the Miami Heat. He's a guy that we know has been to the Eastern Conference Finals. I had to go in and rough him up a little bit to get him off of LeBron James when I was in Cleveland, and we had to face him. Listen, he's a guy that want all the smoke. I'm not saying Miami is my pick. I'm saying in order for the Bucks to get to Toronto, they got to get through Miami first in that second round. And by the way, I don't want to disrespect the Pacers.
That's what I'm saying,
the only reason that I'm not disrespecting the Pacers. The Pacers without Sabonis cannot beat the Miami Heat, period, point blank.
And by the way, you guys talk about Nick Nurse as coach of the year. I don't know why Nate McMillan has to fight for 1-year extension and stuff like that. Look at the job he's done with players who are available, aren't available, coming, going. They're the higher seed.
He's fantastic, which justifies
the higher seed in this matchup.
Listen, he's fantastic, which justifies the contract extension that he received. It's well-deserved. We all know that Nate McMillan is a tremendous, tremendous coach. It's just that when I think that you're a champion, you lose Kawhi Leonard, and then you go out and coach your tail off the way that you have, and considering how innovative Nick Nurse appears to be, you got to give credit where credit is due. Perk, the last point I want to make is about what you said about size. I completely get where you're coming from, and as it pertains to guard play, you're usually right. But come playoff time, as the game slows down and teams are able to get back on defense more effectively than they have even attempt to during the regular season. If you recall last year, even though Boston was a bit discombobulated, when you saw Kyrie and Marcus Smart and those guys go up against Milwaukee, you saw the absence of length that they had at their disposal and how much of a detriment it was to them when they went up against Boston. That's all I'm saying about that.
All right, we are going to wrap up the discussion there, but